Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to have you here for this workshop. So today we'll be creating an interchain token programmatically with Axelar. As you can see on the screen, this is what the workshop is all about. And then we will be using the Axelar Interchain Token Service to seamlessly create and manage interchain tokens. So this workshop is designed to be really, really informative and at the same time interactive. So if you have any question at any point, please feel free to drop it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them all. And also, before we venture into the hands-on part, we will start with the basic, ensuring that everybody is on the same page. And also, this is an opportunity where you get to learn how to create your own interchain token programmatically. I encourage questions, of course, and also discussion and curiosity as we go through this workshop together. So grab your favorite beverage and settle in. Let's get started. So my name is Idris Olubisi. I am a software engineer and a technical writer. I currently work as a developer advocate at Axelar. You can find me on all socials at Olanesoft. Let's get right into it. Okay, so there's a concept of interchain token I want to share with you all through an analogy that I find very, very interesting. So, for example, you are a traveler, and then imagine a situation where each blockchain is a country with its own currency, right? Interchain tokens are like travelers with a universal credit card, which in this case, I'm referring to tokens that are accepted in every country. And then the country refers to as the blockchain, right? Where they visit. So initially, every traveler, of course, must prepare and set up things to get their universal credit card, which in this case is to create an interchain token so that when they travel from their home country to anywhere around the globe, they can spend their funds seamlessly. So in this case, this analogy simply means that giving you access to create an interchain token that you can connect to every other chain, and then you can also be able to transfer funds from one protocol to another. So in this workshop, we'll be going in the demo part of this workshop, we'll be deploying on Fantom blockchain and also deploying remotely to Polygon. So all of this process, I'll show you how that is going to be, and also what are some of the things we need to set up as we will be doing everything from scratch, from setting up our environment, creating, adding up ABIs, and also deploying a new interchain token, deploying that interchain token remotely, and then doing token transfers from one blockchain to the other. So now, having said all of this, right, as a traveler, how do you even take advantage of the new world, which allow you to spend the universal credit card, in this case, which is the interchain token that get accepted in every country? There are a few questions you might want to ask yourself. In a case where, what if decentralized services, decentralized finance services reach beyond one blockchain? So consider the potential where your DeFi application or platform, where you do things like lending, borrowing, trading services, are not limited to a single blockchain. So ITS paves the way for assets to leverage as collateral across chains, ushering a new era for interconnected financial solutions. Another thing you might also want to think about is, what if liquidity wasn't confined into one chain? So imagine a world where your asset flows freely as information on the internet, unbound by borders of individual blockchains. So with ITS, liquidity is a universal concept, allowing you to tap into opportunities, not just where the assets were issued. And then finally, of course, we don't like anything complex. What if complexity was replaced with simplicity? What exactly does ITS offer in this situation? So envision simplifying the interchain experience, where deploying and managing your decentralized application across diverse blockchain is as straightforward as updating a blog post. So Interchain Token Service automates the technical heavy lifting so developers can innovate without difficulties. Having said all of this, is this actually a magic? Of course not. This is not a magic. There is an underlying service powering this process. And what exactly is that service? The Interchain Token Service. So this service itself, this service powers the Interchain tokens we are about to create programmatically during this workshop. So I'll be explaining some of the underlying things you need to understand about Interchain token during the demo. But I just want you to understand the underlying service that powers your Interchain token and that makes it very easy to move assets around seamlessly. What exactly is Interchain Token Service? This is a suite of tools, right? And then smart contract that is designed in a way to empower developers to issue, manage token that retains their utility and fungibility across multiple blockchains. So as you create your Interchain token and then deploy across different blockchains, you have access to manage and issue those tokens while you retain their utility across all of these blockchains that you deploy them onto. So it's important to note a few things that comes out of the box with Interchain Token Service. So I highlighted a few points here, which the first one is trustless, right? Interchain token run on an open source code via a smart contract on a public blockchain. And this is secured by a dynamic validator set, which means that you can track and see everything going on chain. Another one here is no code ability. Yes, no code. You heard that correctly. Only Interchain tokens fully automate permissionless interchain deployment and management, where you can leverage these by visiting or deploying your new token or making your existing token a canonical Interchain token, leveraging the Interchain token portal on mainnet and also for testnet if you want to test things out before you go live. Another point is fungible. You can easily scale up because right now it is connected to over 15 plus blockchain. So which means that it's easier for you to scale up if you already have your token on an existing blockchain, which you can create a canonical version of that token that shares a single EVM address across all the chains that is currently being deployed on. How cool is that? So the final one here, the final point here is the functional part of things, right? Interchain tokens are very, very customizable, and with features like permissions, yields, and also making sure that whatever customization you have is intact across all the chain that the token is currently deployed on. But that's not all. Now let's talk about the Interchain tokens itself. I've explained what the Interchain token does and then also some of the things you get out of the box. But what exactly are Interchain tokens generally? These are tokens that are typically created and managed by Axelar Interchain Token Service, which uses the Axelar communication protocol to send tokens cross-chain. So with it, you can build your own assets or build your asset bridge or your asset transfer into any Interchain decentralized application and have the flexibility to interact and also send this token seamlessly between different blockchain. So another thing I want to point out here is that when Interchain tokens are created, right? If you create a new Interchain token, maybe you do this programmatically like we are going to do during the demo and in this workshop, or you utilize the Interchain token portal to create a new Interchain token. A mint-bond token manager is deployed, allowing that Interchain tokens to move between chain seamlessly, as the token manager will mint and bond tokens as needed. All of these things is something we are going to take a look at and also see how this is done, under the hood. So moving on, Now let's get right into the demo. So I don't want to waste like anyone's time because we have a lot to cover in today's session, where we'll be creating Interchain token programmatically using the Axelar Interchain Token Service. So what are we going to do in this demo? First, we are going to create a new Interchain token from scratch using the Axelar Interchain Token Service. And also we are going to register and deploy the token locally on Fantom chain. We are using Fantom in this example. Feel free to use any other preferred blockchain, any other blockchain that you prefer. Also, we are also going to register and deploy the token remotely on Polygon chain, right? And after that, after registering and deploying on both chains, we are also going to transfer tokens between those chains, right? So without wasting much of our time, let's get right into it. So I'll switch over to my terminal right now. Let me zoom in a little bit. Hopefully you can all see my screen. So the first thing we want to do is to head over to our terminal. You can navigate to any of your preferred directory. And then the first thing we want to do is to create your directory and then install dependencies. So this is a process. This is the first process that we are going to go through, which includes setting up our development environment. And then what we plan to do here is I've already created my directory, which I call new Interchain token, right? Feel free to name it anyhow you want it. But then the first thing you want to do after creating your directory is to install initialize npm. So we will do that by saying npm init and then adding a y flag to accept all command by default. Oh, sorry, I think I have a typo there. So now we've done that, Claire. You can choose to do all the command that we need to set up our local development environment, right, from your terminal, or you choose to do it from your code editor, either you're using Visual Studio Code, Sublime, or whatever code editor. But then I'll just stick right here for you to see all the commands that we are going, all the packages that we are going to install that will be useful for us during this workshop. So first things first, now that we have initialized npm, what we need to do next is to install hard hat, because we'll be using hard hat during this presentation. So we install hard hat and also the .env for managing our environment variable. I can just do that by saying npm install --save -dev and then hard hat. I'm specifying 2.18, 2.18.1 and then .env 16.3.1. So let's quickly install that before we move on to the next installation, where we are going to install AxelarJS SDK and a crypto package and also hard hat toolbox. So it is important to note all of these things and also understand some of these packages and then why we are installing them. Even though you see all of these things in action in a moment when we get to utilize them in our project, but then this is what we are doing first, and we just need to wait before we run the second command, which is to install the AxelarJS SDK and also the hard hat toolbox and one other package that will be useful for us to generate a unique sort. So now that this is done, we can install the AxelarJS SDK that I mentioned, the crypto package that I mentioned that we'll be using this to generate our sort value, and also the hard hat toolbox. So let's get that in. We are almost done setting up our local environment when it comes to installing dependencies and other packages that we'll be needing for this workshop. So additionally, what we are going to do next is to set up project ABIs. So let me just wait for this to install so we don't miss any step. All right, it's almost there. So this can be really fast depending on your internet provider. So let's just give it a couple of 1 seconds and then we should be fine. All right. So We're done with installation. So what we need to do next is to set up our project ABIs. So these are the functions, the ABIs that we'll be interacting with different contracts. So we'll be interacting with the Interchain Token Service for transfers and also other functionality. And at the same time, we'll be interacting with the Interchain Token Factory for our deployment and also deploying remotely. And we'll also be interacting with the new Interchain token. So let me show you how to get all of these ABIs I mentioned. So there are several ways to get this. So you can go to our documentation. If you go to the documentation, developers, under the cost stream, under testnet. Just do that from here. So if you go to testnet and then scroll down, you see these addresses here. So the first one is the Interchain Token Service, and then the second one is the Interchain Token Factory. So when you click on any of these links, it takes you to the block explorer. The address is the same on testnet and mainnet. So mind you, this is mainnet, but in this demo, we'll be doing all of our tests on testnet. So I've already opened that here, this is the Interchain Token Service. As you can see here, the Interchain Token Service name, and also the Interchain Token Factory, right? So what do we need here? We need ABIs here, right? So let's go to, for the factory, we check read as fuzzy, and then we check the implementation contract. This is where we can find the contract ABI that we'll be needing for us to interact with the contract directly on our ad hat project locally. So when you scroll down, like you have to scroll down and then you see the ABI. But then I've also created like different gists for these ABIs, and I'll be linking that in the description below, and we'll also be sharing it after the presentation for anyone that just wants to come here and then copy directly instead of going through the Explorer. So now we have these for the Interchain Token Service ABI, we have the Interchain Token Factory ABI, and then we have the Interchain Token ABI. So this Interchain Token ABI, this is a contract that implements the Interchain token, that extends the Interchain Token Service functionality. So this contract also inherits minters and other implementation logic that we'll be taking a look at in a moment. So these are the things you need to set up and then add to your project before you get started. So now let's do that right away. So I'll go back to my terminal right now and then make a directory called utils. You can name it whatever, but for the sake of this tutorial, clear. And then we can just open up our Visual Studio Code. If you are using any other editor, please feel free to open it up and we should be good to go. So opening this hub, I already set up my environment variable. That's why you're seeing this here. So, but then we'll get to the stage where we'll set this up. So if you're following along, just don't worry. When we get there, I'll show you what you need to do. So right now I have created this utils folder, and then the first thing I want to do is to create a new file called Interchain Token Service. Interchain Token Service ABI.json. Now I'll do the same thing for slide typo here. All right, so I'll do the same thing for the second one, which is Interchain Token Factory.json. I think I might need to zoom in a little bit so that you can see this clearly. So now we have Interchain Token Factory.json. We have Interchain Token Service ABI. Okay, Interchain Token Service ABI.json. So let's just rename this so that we have the same name in the same format. So we have this good to go. And then additionally, we can also add the Interchain Token ABI.json. All right, so now we have all of these. So what we just need to do now is head over to our browser and then copy this. So you can just like highlight and say, oh, sorry, you need to do this way, and then copy it. So now go back to Visual Studio Code and then paste it in, save. Now we need to copy the factory here. So we do the same thing, go back to our code. We have the factory. And finally, we go back to copy for the Interchain Token Service itself. It's a little bit longer, but then just double check when you copy and paste to be sure that you have all the ABIs intact. So I think it is complaining. Yeah, so you can see what I'm saying, right? So you need to make sure you have everything set up. And then now we have all of these intact. Well, what are we doing next? The next thing for us is we need to set up an RPC. But then before we set up an RPC, you should create an env file. So you can just go back to your terminal, clear your terminal, and then you type in torch.env. I'm not going to run this again because I already created mine. And so when you create that, you just set up a variable called private key, and then you pass in your private key here, and we should be good to go, right? So now that we have our private key set up, we are good to go. So we can just proceed to set up our RPC. So in this case, we'll be setting up RPC for Fantom because this is where we'll be registering and deploying our Interchain token. And then before we now deploy remotely on Polygon, right? So for us to set up that, we just need to go back to our terminal and then type in npx had init. So when you type in the npm had init, right, you click enter. So you need to scroll down and select create an empty had.config.js. That's very, very important. You're not creating a whole new project. You just want to initialize the had.config.js. So now we are good. I've created that. So let me just clear the terminal and then go back. You can see that we already have that. So what we need to do now is set up our RPC. And then in this case, we set up the RPC for Fantom. So to make things a little bit faster, you can just have this here. So I'm using this free open RPC URL and also specifying the chain ID for 4002 and then specifying our private key because we already have everything set up. So we should be good to go. But then before we proceed, for the system to be able to read this environment variable, you need to also specify a few things by importing the had toolbox and also the .env package that we install so that the system can be able to read the environment variable. And also, we created this private key here, so you can specify it. Please make sure you don't skip any of this step. If not, you are going to run into an error when you want to deploy or like interact with this contract directly. So now we are all set. We have set up our local development environment. We've added all our ABIs that we need for both the Interchain token and also the Interchain token factory and the Interchain token service. Additionally, we also added the environment variable. It's very, very important to know that if you are going to push this project at the end of the day to GitHub, please make sure you add .env to your git ignore file so that you don't end up pushing your private key publicly on GitHub or whatever version control or provider you're using. So now we've set up that and also set up the had config for our RPC, and then we should be good to go. So now the next thing we want to do is to create a script, which is a file that will allow us to deploy this token, register it, and also deploy remotely and interacting with it. So now let me create a new file called new interchain token.js. New interchain token.js, right? So feel free to name this whatsoever you want to name it, right? But I just use this name because pretty much self-explanatory, and then you can tell what the file is doing. So we need to import a few things to get started with. So I will just quickly do that right away and then explain what we just imported. So yeah, let me close this. You can see this clearly. So we have already installed this package when we're setting up our all of these packages when we are setting up our local development environment at the beginning of this workshop. So what we are just doing here is to import them and also import some of the things that we'll be needing. So we also imported the Interchain Token Service Contract API. We did the same thing for the Interchain Token Factory, and then the same thing for the Interchain Token Contract API. So all of this linking to the JSON that we created here earlier on. And then we have also specified the Interchain token address, because of course we'll be interacting with it, we need the address. So we have this address set up here, and also we have the Interchain token factory contract address here. You see how we are going to use this in a moment. So now we are good to go with imports. What we need to do next is to create a signer for us to be able to sign our transactions. So, but to make things easier so that we don't get to initialize signers every time, we're going to create a very simple function that we can always call and then use that to get our signer, get instance of our signer, and then use the return signer to sign any transaction directly from our Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to call this get signer, and this is a very simple function. And then inside the function, what we are going to do is to say const and then get the object signer and the get signer, and then we return the signer. So that's it for the get find signer function. Additionally, we are also going to create an helper function that will help us to get contract instance so that we don't get to do it every time. So once we call the function, it returns it creates an instance of that contract and then returns it for us to utilize in our function. So we can just name this get contract instance. Yeah, and then we specify the contract address. We also specify the contract ABI, and at the same time we specify the signer. So yeah, so in this case, what next? We are just going to return the new instance and then add in all of the details that we got from here, which is the contract address, the contract ABI, and also, sorry, let me just change this real quick. Contract ABI, and then specify the signer. So now we are all set. What are we going to do next is to actually register and deploy the Interchain token. So here we are going to create another function and then name it function, and then name it register and deploy. So register and deploy, we type here, and then we say, so there are a few things we want to do here. Yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to be sure that we have everything set. So there are a few things we want to do here. So I'm just going to write it out so that we don't miss any step. And also we can also follow through as we proceed. So the first thing we want to do is to create a salt value. And then we also want to now proceed to initialize token info. Initialize our token info. We can just to make things really, really cleaner. All right, so when we initialize our token information, next thing we want to do is to also initialize, you can decide to just initialize the token supply, the initial token supply. and then we move forward to create we move forward to the next thing, where we'll be getting the signer. We need to get the signer for this particular transaction, get the signer, and then proceed to create the contract instance. These are all comments. Just wanted us to like have it out so you understand what we are doing step by step. So additionally, now that we've created the contract instance, the next thing we want to do is to get the token address. And then we might choose to just, instead of getting the token ID, we just let's get the token ID first. Token ID, and then we get the token address that was deployed, token address of token that was deployed, and we proceed to token ID, token address, and we proceed to also get the expected token manager. Remember, I mentioned during the presentation that the token manager gets deployed, which a mint and bond token manager gets deployed, which will be used to mint and bond tokens across chain. So we want to get that token manager, the expected token manager, after token is deployed successfully. And then finally, we now want to deploy our interchain token. So right, and then we just log, because we need to keep track of a few things like the salt, the token ID, especially the token ID, salt and token ID that we'll be reusing when we want to deploy this token remotely. So now, going back to the first thing that we need to do here to create a unique salt value. So I don't want to spend a lot of time in our house, so we can just quickly do that by using the crypto package that we installed, calling the random byte function there, and then to string x, and then we should be fine. And for token information, we can choose to call this anything we want. So I can say this is my Interchain token, that's the name. And then for token symbol, I can call it MIT. And then for token decimals, it's 18. So now we're good to go on that. We can now create our initial supply. So you can choose whatsoever you want as initial supply. But in this case, I will be using, this is 1 million. So we'll be deploying 1 million tokens for this particular token during this demo. So this is going to be our initial supply, right? So moving on, we just need to now get the signer, because we've created the function, the reusable function that we can use to get the signer. So we don't need to do that every time. What we just need to do is to say const and then signer, and then we get the signer directory. And the next thing is to create the contract instance. So the first one is the Interchain Token Factory contract, where we just call the get contract instance, and then we pass in the Interchain Token contract address, which is what we have here. And Interchain Token Factory contract address. And then we specify the Interchain Token Factory contract ABI, and then the signer, right? So we have all of this specified. And then moving on, we can do the same thing for Interchain Token Service contract, right? To get the instance, and then we should be fine. So let me take a pause here and see if we have any question at all. All right. Okay, someone said I have a problem trying to create a token. I have an error. So don't worry, we are going to create a token. That is why we are here, actually, to create a new Interchain token. So you see how we are going to do that step by step without encountering any error, hopefully. And then to the second question, can you share a GitHub link for this project? Please, definitely at the end of this session, you can check the YouTube description. You'll find a link and every other resources that is useful that you need to have for you to be able to create an interchain token programmatically. All of this will be linked in the description of the YouTube video. All right, thank you for those questions. Please keep them coming in. We're happy to answer all of them. So now we are done with creating the contract instance, which is the Interchain Token Factory contract, and also the Interchain Token Service contract. So the next thing we need to do now is to get the token ID, right? So token ID, this is unique for this deployment. And then what we want to do is to call the Interchain Token ID function directly from the service. So we can say Interchain Token Service dot Interchain Token ID, right? And then we specify two things. The first thing we are going to specify here is the signer.address, and also the sort value that we created here. So this is a unique sort identity. This is a unique sort value. And then those are the two things that we are going to specify. Okay. So I think this is not Interchain Token Service contract, it's Interchain Token Factory. So we're going to get the Interchain Token ID from the Interchain Token Factory contract. So all of these functions that I'm mentioning, let me just go back to my browser. So you see all of them that we're trying to call. So let's scroll up a little bit. This is the Interchain Token Factory. And then if I navigate to read contract, you can see this is the function we're about to call, which is the Interchain Token ID that will specify the signer.address and also the sort value. So which give us the unique token ID for this Interchain token deployment. So now we're good to go with the token ID. We also want to get the token address that we just deployed. So the same thing happened, but then in this case, we are going to, instead of doing it from the factory, this function is available for us on the Interchain Token Service contract itself. So if you scroll down, you see token address. So let me see what we're trying to look at. Interchain token address, yeah, this is it. So now you can just specify the token ID that you got from the previous step, and then once you pass it in, you'll be able to get the Interchain token address for this particular token that you deploy. So now let's go back to our Visual Studio Code and then type in, try to get the token address, and we say await Interchain. No, we are getting it directly from the service, not the contract. And then we click on Interchain. We are going to access the Interchain token address, right? And then we specify the token ID. Yes. So now we have this good to go. We also want to get the expected token manager. So you can get this directly from the factory. From the service also. But then this is very wrong. You can just do Interchain Token Service. Sorry about that. It's Copilot keep auto completing. But then let's start it out ourselves. Interchain token service dot token manager. The token manager address, and then what are we going to specify to get this token manager address? We are just specifying the token ID. So if we check one more time, go back to our Interchain token service contract that is deployed, we can scroll down and then see this function that we are calling. So this is it. This is the function we are calling here, which is the token manager address, and then we're specifying the token ID. So going back to our Visual Studio Code, we are almost done, but then the final step here is to do the actual deployment, which will be leveraging the factory to do that, right? So const, and I can just call this deploy tx data, and then we can say with Interchain Token Factory dot deploy chain token, and then there are a few things we need to specify here. So Interchain Token Factory, then deploy Interchain token. Yeah. So there are a few things that we need to specify here. The first one is salt, which is the salt value that we already have. And then the second one is the name of the token, and then followed by the symbol, followed by the decimals and the initial supply, and finally the signer dot address. Yes. So we can close the bracket, and then I think we skipped one comma here, and then save, right? So all of these things that you need to pass in, let's take a look at it directly on the contract. So if you go to Interchain Token Service repository, is public, and then navigate to the contract folder under the Interchain Token Factory, scroll down, or you can just search for deploy Interchain token. You see all of these things that we're passing in here as the required, parameter, where we pass in the salt, the name, the symbol, the decimal, the interchain, the initial supply, and then the minter. So we are specifying the minter here. So in this case, the signer address. So you can choose to specify if you want another address to be the minter, or if you still want, whatsoever deploy this token to also be the minter. So that's all up to you. And then finally, we are just going to log the result, because we need a few things on our terminal, and then we just want to be able to keep track of those things, and then we use them later on in this workshop. So now we are good to go. Let's take a look at what we've achieved so far. So we created a salt value here, and then we initialize our token information. In this case, we are using my Interchain token. You can choose to specify any name of your choice, right? And then we specify MIT as the symbol, decimals 18. We initialize the supply here. In this case, yes, the initial supply is 1 million tokens, right? And then we also get the signer. We created an instance, the contract instance for both Token Factory and Interchain Token Service. And then we also got access to our Interchain Token ID using the signer address and then the salt. We also proceed to get Interchain token address. That's this token address that we're about to deploy. And finally, the expected token manager address. So this is meant to be an address, not just expected token manager. So we can be sure what we are getting in return. So because this is an address that is being returned, right? So we have these, and then we now deploy our Interchain token, where we're able to call the deploy Interchain token function on the factory. So the salt, specify the salt, the name, the symbol, the decimal, the initial supply, the signer.address, and then we logged the token ID, the token address, the hash for the transaction, the salt value, and then the expected token manager address. So now we're good to go. Next thing we want to do is to test out this thing, like test out the actual deployment. Since we already set up our RPC, we just need to create additional function here called the main function. But I'll just paste that in, save time. So what we are doing here basically is to create this function so that we can call, we can test out this script to register and deploy the Interchain token. So this is a very simple function that specifies individual method that you want to run. So directly from your terminal, you can just get access to it and then deploy directly. So now, what command are you going to use to deploy this? So this is a very simple command. I'll also be adding it here for visibility. So right here, let me just add this as a comment here. Sorry, excuse me. Yep. Yes, so this is the command that we will be using. So we are specifying the function name, which is register and deploy, because at the end of the day, we have like several cases for register and deploy. This is the first one. We are going to have deploying remotely, and then we are going to have token transfers. So we need to specify which method we want to run, and then call use the command npm hadat run the interchain token.js script, and then specify the network, which is Fantom. So if you go back to the hadat.config.js, you can see what we specified here is Fantom, right? So now let's go back to the script and then navigate back to our terminal, clear just to be sure, and then paste in that function and then click run. So what we are doing right now, we are registering a new interchain token, and then we are deploying it. So now, all good. We have a brand new interchain token deployed successfully on the Fantom testnet. So I'm just going to copy all of this and then add it here as a comment, because we'll be needing it later on. So I'm going to paste this here and then comment it out. Right. So, but then we can also verify before we move on to make sure that everything is fine. So we can just copy this, right, the transaction hash, and then go to Fantom testnet, right, testnet.ftm, yeah. And then we are going to paste in this transaction hash to confirm everything is planned, and also the transaction is successful. Yeah, as you can see, successful, and it shows like 47 seconds ago. And this is the method we call, which is deploy interchain token. Then we have other information that you might want to check out. And if you take a look at this, you can see the initial main supply, which is 1M. We can also click on this, the token information page, to see the maximum, the total supply that we currently have, which is 1 million NMIT. Only token holder is, I'm the only one, like the address that deploys this token, and then you can find every other information here. So we are going to come back to this page when we do the token transfer. So I'm going to leave this open, but then I'm just going to navigate back to our script. Now that we've confirmed the transaction has gone through successfully, we have logged our token ID, we have our token ID, we have our token address, we have our sort value, and then we have our expected token manager. So now we're good to go, right? The next thing we want to do now is to deploy this interchain token that we just, shipped successfully to a remote chain. So in this example, in this workshop, we are deploying to Polygon. So you can deploy to any other chain. 15 plus chains are available for you to deploy on. So now let's proceed to create another function, which we are going to call let me say deploy remote token. You can choose to call this whatever name you want to. Deploy to remote chain. Okay, let me just name it correctly so that's self-explanatory. So now what we are trying to do in this function is to deploy to remote chains. But then before we proceed, for you to deploy to remote chain, this is a remote deployment, of course. We need to estimate gas that will be required for us to deploy from the first chain, in this case, which is Fantom, to Polygon. So before we create this function to deploy, let's create a function that does gas estimate for us to know like the actual gas required for deploying a token remotely from Fantom to Polygon. So this is pretty simple. So what we are just going to do is to create a variable called API, and then this is going to be equals to, we'll use this to create a new instance of the Axelar query API. So this is coming from the package that we installed just now. We'll use this Axelar query API method from the axelar.js.sdk that we just installed, that we installed when we were setting up the environment variables. So what are we going to do now is to go back, scroll down, and then just do new Axelar query API, and then we are going to specify the environment. In this case, the environment is testnet, right? And then we proceed to create a new function called, let me call this gas estimates. estimator. Yeah, let me call that estimator. And then what this is going to do is to this is a function, so I can call it gas estimator. And then we open up close curly braces. And then inside this gas, did I spell this correctly? Yeah, gas estimator. Yeah. So in that inside this gas estimator, what we are going to do is create a new variable called gas, and then we await the API dot estimate gas fee. This is a function available for us on the SDK for us to estimate gas fee. Then we can proceed to specify the source chain. So in this case, it's going to be evm.phantom, and then the destination chain, which is also going to be evm chain dot polygon. In this case, okay, I think it should be all caps. Yeah, polygon. Let me change this to. These are the methods available. These are the configurations you need to set for you to get gas estimate. And then we specify the currency. In this case, is FTM for, of course, for Fantom. And then finally, we have some other optional parameters that you might want to set, 7,000, and then the multiplier, the gas. So these are optional parameters that you might want to set. So now we have done that, and then we can just return the gas value. So what this is going to do for us to get estimates, the gas estimate required for us to send to deploy the token from Fantom to Polygon. All right, we are all good to go. So now we can proceed to deploy to remote token. Right, what are some of the things we need to do here? This is kind of similar to what we did when we are deploying the first time. So we have a few things to get, which is first one is called designer, and then we already created an helper function, so we can just call that designer. We create the instance of the interchain token, interchain token factory. Interchain token factory. Yeah, interchain token factory. Then we get the contract instance that specify the contract address, the interchain token contract ABI, and also the signer. So now that we have all of this, we don't need like this service here. What we need to do to deploy, we can get that function directly from the interchain token factory. So the next thing we want to do is to create a variable to get the gas amount using the gas estimator that we created. And then proceeding now, we can create the sort. So we are not going to create a new sort. Remember, we logged the previous one because this is the only unique identifier that you can use to connect all your token deployment together. So we are just going to copy the sort value that we have previously and then specify it here. So now that we have the sort value, we are good to go. So we just proceed to say txn await interchain token factory dot interchain interchain dot deploy remote interchain token. So you can see the function, the method we are calling here is quite different from the first one, because the first one is deploy interchain token. This one we are calling deploy remote interchain token, right? So we just need to specify a few things like we did in the previous step. The first one is, what we are specifying first is the origin chain, right? Which is the local chain here. And then we specify the sort value, and we specify the signer dot address, sorry, it's wrong, signer dot address, and then we proceed to specify the destination chain, which is in this case Polygon, and then we specify the gas amount. Finally, we specify the value. So we are just going to use the gas amount estimate for both the gas value and also the gas required for this transaction, gas amount. So now we are all set. So you might be wondering, like, how do I know, like, this is meant to be written this way, or some of what are the required parameters? So let's head over real quick to the Interchain token factory contract. And then inside it, when you scroll down or you search for deploy remote Interchain token, let me zoom in a little bit to see my screen. So you can see this says deploy remote Interchain token, and then the first thing you want to specify is the origin chain name, original chain name, right? Doesn't have like original chain name, and then you specify the salt, you specify the minter, and then you specify the destination chain, the gas value. So we have specified all of that, but then if you notice here, these are destination chain name for, this is for Fantom, this is for Polygon. For you to know how to get this and also how it is written, if it's all caps, low cap, we have all of that in our documentation. So if you go to our documentation under testnet and then scroll down, you see, let's scroll to Fantom. You can see the chain name specified here is Fantom. This is case sensitive, so you need to make sure that you have the exact chain name as written here. And then if you scroll down to Polygon, or like to Polygon, you see for Polygon also. So this is where we got the name from, and then we are good to go. So finally, what we need to do is to, of course, log our transaction. But then we are not just logging the entire transaction. Let's just log the hash alone. So now we have the transaction hash logged. Let me specify this so that we know what is currently being logged. Yeah, so we have this transaction hash. So now we have this transaction hash, then we can proceed now to update this function that we use to run our script. So what are we updating there is just to specify this new method that we just created right now. So in this case, what we are just going to do here is to specify deploy to remote chain. Make sure this name tallies with the name of the method that you created. So let's double check, tallies. Okay, so okay, deploy to remote chain. Let me just, I think instead of saying deploy remote token, it's better we call it deploy to remote chain. So now what exactly are we deploying to remote chain? Of course, is the token. So we have this now all set up and then good to go. What we can just do here is to run the same the same command, but what we are going to do differently is now it's not register and deploy, it is deploy to remote chain. Right, and then I can just proceed here, copy this, and then go back to our terminal and then paste it in. Now we are deploying to a remote chain, which is Polygon in this example. So let's click enter and then wait for it to run. So it said config environment does not exist. So let's take a look at why we are getting that error. Environment is testnet. Select query API. Oh, okay, I think this should be E. Yeah, as you can see, like this is the property that we have under the AXELR query API config. So yeah, all right. So let's go back. Since we already saved all of this information earlier on, so we can clear the terminal so that we have a clean slate and then run the function again to deploy. Because now this is undefined. So let's go back and troubleshoot. Yeah, it's time. Let's take a look at what is happening here. We specify the AXELR query, the environment. and the environment testnet. This is another mistake. So it's an enum. So you can see it's all caps. If you check, take a look at it here. You can see this is what was declared in the package, devnet, testnet, and then mainnet. So you need to specify it this way, right? So now we have this fully, everything goes fine now. So let's wait for it to deploy. This should be pretty fast. All right, so while this is deploying, okay, it's already deployed. So while this is deploying, let me check one more time if we have any question so that I can quickly answer that. Oh, yes, thank you guys. Yeah, and in caps, yeah, thank you very much. All right, thank you all for joining. All right, let's go back to code, and then we can copy the transaction hash and then go back to the Fantom testnet. So let me just duplicate this so that we have this. I want us to keep track of what is going on there. So I can paste in this transaction hash on Fantom testnet, and then you can see it's successful. And then the function that get called is deploy remote interchain token, right? So you can see all of these things that happen under the hood and some other information that is required. But of course, this is a remote deployment. We are deploying from one chain to the other. So we can also confirm this and then see this in action on Axelar scan, of course, the testnet. So let me paste in the same address and then click. So let's just wait for this coming up. All right, you can see gas paid, and then it's waiting for finality. This should not take too long for you to finalize. Yeah, you can see this is the Interchain token deployment. This is the event emitted, and then we are deploying from Fantom via Axelar to Polygon. You can also see the gas paid here, the expected time to execute, and also some other information that you might be interested in. So let's just wait a little bit for this to be finalized, and then let me just refresh the page. Of course, you don't need to, but then let's just wait and see. So this is still ongoing. Yeah, you can hover here. It says approval can take approximately 1 minute and 2 seconds. Of course, this is testnet. As we can see, for this to finalize and get confirmed and approved, then execute. So while this is going on, we can just take a step back to what we did for deploy to remote chain. So it's pretty straightforward. So we get a signer, and then we use, we have an helper function that we already created. So we use that to get the signer, specify the contract instance, get the gas estimates, use the sort value that we use during the deployment on Fantom, and then deploy remote interchain token, and then specify all other information that is required for this. And that's exactly what we did all through to make this happen. So let's go back and see if it's now finalized. All right, so this is finality is based off like different chains. Like different chains have different, average time to finalize. For you to learn more about that, let me go to testnet dot .axelar scan. If you go to testnet and then you click on interchain transfer, and This is testnet, by the way. So, and then you scroll down to the bottom. Let it finish loading. Okay, and then you scroll down to the bottom. You can see the GMP time for all chains. So you have all of them based on their time it takes to execute, time it takes for approval, and also for Fantom, the time it takes to execute and approve. So we have like different time, every time for different network. So in this case, we are using Fantom, and because it's testnet, of course, quite a lot of things might be happening here. So it's delayed right now. Because one thing is that we need to ensure that this is completed successfully before we proceed to do token transfers. So let me go back if we have any questions at this point. GM, no questions. All right, let's go back and then see what happens. Refresh to show. This is strange anyways, taking longer than expected. This is usually less than 1 minute, like less than 2 minutes max. Let's just wait a little bit for this to be complete. And also, while that is going on, you can also see other information that are relevant for you. To take a look at, we have the message ID, the command ID, the source chain, and the destination chain, and also the source address and destination address. You can see it's pretty much the same thing because this is the ITS address. And then we have the payload hash and then the payload itself. So these are other information, and then this is really cool because using the Axelar scan, you just get to see everything end to end as it's moving from the source chain to the destination chain. This should take less than 2 minutes. Not sure what's going on. Let's see. So after while this is going on, so after this step, what we want to do next is to do token transfer, because now we have our interchain token deployed on Fantom. We have it deployed on, we are deploying it remotely on Polygon. So what we want to do next is to be able to transfer that token from Fantom to Polygon seamlessly. So that's just the last step we are going to do immediately after this process is completed. Let me just get someone to look for this. I don't know what's going on. Okay, this is surprising. I don't know. So let me see. Do we have any other question? No questions. So we can. Not sure if we should continue waiting to see this. Okay. Not sure. I think there is currently ongoing updates. That's currently delaying this particular transaction. Um, one second. It should be good to go in a moment. All right. So I think there's an ongoing upgrade. So what we're going to do right now is to. I'm not sure we want to keep waiting for this, but this should be back up in a moment. Mm. All right, guys. So apologies for the delay. I think we currently is an update going on right now. So but then back to our presentation. I'm sorry, back to our demo. We have completed the deploy remote interchain token function. We've done the one for registering on the local chain as the first chain, which is Fantom. And then what we're about to do next is to do the Fantom chain, right? So while we wait for that, let's just proceed to, because ideally what we want to do is after that deployment is completed remotely, we want to be able to send token from one chain to the other. So in this example, we'll be sending token from Fantom to Polygon. We'll be sending any amount typically. So to move on, let's create another function here, which is going to be a function called, we can decide to choose, I don't know, we can call it any name, maybe token transfer token or whatever. So in this case, I'll just give it transfer tokens. And then we have this, we have this. So now the step is kind of similar, pretty similar to get signer and to get a few things. But then first, what we want to do here is to get the signer, of course, usual, and then we proceed to get the interchain token instance. Remember that we added the ABI for interchain token, right? So const, let's just call this interchain token, and then we await the get constant instance and then specify this. So this, we are going to add the first parameters here is the token address, right? Token address. And then moving on, we would specify the interchain token contract ABI and then the signer, just like we did for the factory and the interchain token service. So moving on, we have this setup. So we can go back to, scroll up to the comment that we added here, and then get the token address. This is the token address for our new token. Copy it, scroll down. Yeah, this is the token address. And finally, we are done like getting the contract instance for this token address. And now we can call the token interchain transfer from the token. So one thing to note here that you have two options, right? Because this is an interchain token, it already inherits the interchain token standard, and then you can find things like the transfer. So you can call interchain transfer directly from this token. The other option is if you want to utilize the interchain token service, which has the interchain token transfer, and then you can just call it directly from the service. So in this example, since we already have the token contract ABI set up, we are just going to add it and then specify it here right now, and then use the token to transfer, like use the token itself to, and then call interchain token transfer on it to transfer token from Polygon, from Fantom to Polygon. So what are we going to do next is to, of course, same thing we did previously, which is to get the gas amount. Which is get gas amount, and we've already created that helper function already, so we can get that real quick. And then finally, we want to do the transfer. So we say transfer equals to, we await the interchain token dot interchain transfer. Interchain transfer is what we want to call on interchain transfer, right? So now we have this. So there are a few things we need to specify here. So all of these things, let's take a look at it on GitHub. What are some of the things that we need to specify? So when we scroll we'll go back to GitHub and then go to, 1 second, go to the service. Oh, sorry, not the service, the token itself, the Interchain token. We'll see like some of the things that we need to transfer, and then oh, sorry, the standard itself. Where is it? Standard. And then scroll down, you see interchain transfer. So we need to specify the destination chain. We need to specify the recipient that is going to receive this token, the amount that we want to send, and then the metadata that you want to pass along. So let's go back to our code. And then the first thing we want to do is to specify the destination chain, Polygon in this case, because that's where we want to transfer to. And we now need to specify the recipient. So let me go to my browser and then copy this address. Sorry. All right, so I can just copy this address, then go back to my Visual Studio Code, enter this, and this. So yeah, we can now specify the amount. So you can choose which amount. So in this example, I'll just leave it like that, like specify the default. So the next thing you want to pass here is the metadata. Don't forget. So I'm just passing OX here, which is I don't have like anything I want to pass in extra. So, and then we can specify the gas amount here. But then this gas amount is going to come in as a value. This is the gas required for this cross-chain transaction. And that's it that we need to specify. So now let's log it as usual. Console transaction hash. So this is transferred transaction hash. Let's just make sure we get it clear. And then we have this. And so now we've finally like set up the entire thing, the token address, specify the token address. We get the gas amount for this particular transaction. We call the interchain transfer directly on the token, since it's already inherits the token standard that comes with the interchain transfer. And then we specify all of these, parameters, which is the address, the recipient address, the amount that we want to send, the metadata, and then the gas amount. So transaction, and then we are logging the transfer hash, right? So now what we want to do, just like we did for other ones, so we can just specify this transfer tokens. Is that what we called it here? Yeah, so now we are all set. Let me just prepare the command, just like we did earlier on, so that we can just copy and paste. Sorry. I'm trying to duplicate, but it seems. All right, so transfer tokens and then this npm run. Yeah, so this is the command line we will need to do the interchain token transfer from Fantom to Polygon. So we are all set. We set up the function to run the script, set up the actual function for token transfer here, and also deploying it remotely. We've passed this step before. So let me just minimize them. Just collapse it. We have this, and that's all we need to create an interchain token programmatically on both chains, Fantom and Polygon, and then at the same time do interchain transfer, like token transfer. So let's go back to just one last time to see if it's completed or not. If not, we can just proceed. So the expectation here is that we have any question? No. So the expectation here is that after being able to transfer, like deploy remotely, then we should be able to transfer any amount from the assets that we already deployed from one chain to the other. And then when we do that, if you go back to the token address page here, we have the maximum supply here. It is going to reduce because any amount you transfer from here to the Polygon chain, it's going to just reduce from this total supply. And that's all you need to create an interchain token programmatically. Yeah, so this particular code and also the transaction hash, once this remote token deployment is completed, we are going to have it all on under the YouTube description. And also we are also going to share with the community for you to verify all of these things. And at the same time, share these code snippets for anyone that would like to check it out later on while they are trying to create a new interchain token programmatically themselves. So let's go back to, that's it for the demo. Let's go back to our presentation and then quickly wrap up. We are already out of time. So now we've been able to programmatically create an interchain token, which we called my interchain token on Fantom, and then we deploy remotely on Polygon. This is us doing it programmatically. But if you want to go the no-code route and all you want to do is to play around with things directly online without doing anything programmatically, we got it covered. So if you go to this URL, of course, this is mainnet. Let me go to the URL here, interchain.axelar.dev, and then you click on it. You see this portal. Let me just switch to testnet. For testnet, this is mainnet, and then if you switch to testnet, you can see a link here to switch to testnet, right? So it's going to redirect you to testnet.interchain.axelar.dev. So what we did programmatically, where we assign things, get the parameters, the API, set up things, and then running the script locally, you can also do the same thing here. So if you come on this portal, you click on deploy interchain token. It takes in all your information. You just enter it random. I'm not going to do this since you already do it programmatically. You can set in your initial supply, if it's going to be a fixed supply, if it's going to be mutable, and then you can see we're also passing the source. So this is also typically doing the same thing we did right now during the workshop, where we get all of the token information and then deploy it on chain A, which is Fantom, and then remotely deploy it on chain B, which is Polygon. So now let's go back to our presentation. So I just wanted to point that out for those that are interested to do it directly for the portal without doing anything with code. So moving on, yeah, this is what it looks like. This is what we just see in light mode. And then finally, we also have a YouTube that guides you on how to create interchain token using the portal I just showed you step by step. What are the token information that you need to enter? What are some of the things you need? And also how to do it. So you can check it out. It's called Interchain Token Service, Create New Token, on our YouTube channel. So what next? We are really, really excited about the entire functionality and also ability, things that you can do out of the box leveraging the Interchain Token Service. But then we also provide support should in case you have bugs, or you have like questions, or you are curious to learn more about what is happening. You can check out our documentation, but still we have the Axelar network/support repo that we create. You can create a new issue if the issue doesn't exist before, and then ask your question. Would answer it real quick, and we'll be happy to support you any day, anytime. And then finally, so my name is Idris of BBC once again. You can reach out to me at idris@interchain.axelar.io, and then feel free to scan this QR code and let me know what you think about this workshop, how this workshop have been able to help you understand how to create interchain token programmatically. If you find it useful or not, you can use the URL bit.ly/survey, or you just scan this QR code and it takes you to a form that takes less than 1 minute to fill in for you to share your feedback. And then before I wrap up, this is episode 1. that focus mainly on creating interchain programmatically. So we'll also be doing other episodes that focus on registering canonical interchain token, and also how you can deploy custom token. So for example, if you have your token already deployed and then you're looking to make it an interchain token, yes, we got you covered. We are going to schedule another session next week. And you can also join us live to ask your questions directly, and also not just asking your question, but to see how this is done programmatically. And then finally, if you have like custom token that you already deployed on several chains and you want to leverage the Interchain Token Service to link all of these tokens together as a single Interchain token, we also have an episode planned for that. Please watch out and then turn on your post notification to make sure that you don't miss any updates whenever we schedule the live event. Of course, we'll also reach out. We'll also make publicity on all our socials for the next one. Stay tuned. Thank you all for joining. Bye for now. So let me check one last time if we have